The God of the Gaps is a theological perspective wherein God is taken to be everywhere science isn't. See, if science can't answer or explain all, we can just throw God at the in-between and Mazel Tov, we're set. Most people would consider this passable, that's a lie, and amongst academic and intellectual circles, it's just considered lazy. You can't use science's lack of knowledge as proof to your own knowledge, but regardless of this little factoid, God versus science is a centuries-old debate that's mostly decided, and that debate is part of the deeper pursuit of understanding what the fuck is going on. As someone who is frequently in pursuit of esoteric lore and strange knowledge, there's an idea that mysticism and science cannot coincide. And disagree though I may, many people find it easier to think of such things in black and white as if they were a film made before whenever color film was invented. Ha, I'm a Gen Z joke. In modern times, a realm of otherworldly, if you will, is suffering greatly because it can't be touched with a 10-foot pole by anyone intending to keep their academic career. This means, unfortunately, a lot of strange phenomena don't get studied and things stay as is. Phenomena are one thing, though, because at one point mysticism did offer answers to a great deal of these unsolved things. Key to the removal of folklore understanding was not science. No, the greatest butcher to mysticism was Christianity. Christianity became a distinctly imperialistic movement, and though the ideology that it preaches is hardly imperialist, the Church's actions after being adapted and accepted by the Roman emperors were ones of conquest in the spiritual manner. It's convenient that paganism had so many laws enacted against it in the latter half of Roman history, and more so still that so many of the emperors were Christian themselves. The push against other religions and the forcefulness with which Christianity went about converting others dealt damage to the lasting legacy of other traditions. Greater than the act of subjugation is the sheer amount of time between the act of practicing of paganism and now. And sure, paganism never really went away, but over time the traditions have been lost to us, hidden by time, purpose, and just gone. Like you're dead. Christian mysticism is something not often thought of, because we're seemingly surrounded in Christian iconography, but even to an extent Christian mysticism is mysticism lost, and key parts of the mythology are hard to find and harder still to learn of. Take, for example, Abrahamic Gnosticism. If you've ever seen Neon Genesis Evangelion, you've actually seen a very cohesive and in-depth piece on it. But I very much so doubt that you're aware of what Abrahamic Gnosticism is, and it's also a good chance that you don't have several mental illnesses and thus haven't seen Neon Genesis Evangelion. Gnosticism believed, to put it shorthand, that the physical domain is the furthest from God, and that we must pursue knowledge, that the pursuit of earthly ordeals is unholy. So that one embarrassing crush I had, that's viewed critically not only by my eyes every night before bed, but also in the eyes of God himself, which is awesome. To put it longhand, we start with Monad, or the One. This is a being of pure energy. God, it's the center of all. Closest to Monad, we get Pleroma, the region of divine light on a plane just above ours. Pleroma is also the totality of God's power. Within Christian Gnosticism, Jesus is an extension of Pleroma. Now, before we progress, bear in mind the process of emanation, where Monad with divine light spreads and is transformed by material. Cool, but why is the current day most popular Gnostic story Shinji from Getting the Fucking Robot, the show, acting as Aeon to stop the birth of Demiurge as humanity tries to, through brute force, create their own godly light and break the very way the universe functions? Well, the decline of Gnosticism has in part to do with the decline of the Roman Empire, but much more in part to do with the differences it had with the newest rising power, the Christian Church, who deemed Gnosticism a heresy and thus made practicing it a crime that came with the silly little charge of not good stuff, minor things like being murdered. There's a running theme with non-conforming Christian sects. In the start, Christianity was very diverse, but in the 4th century, the Edict of Thessalonica was issued, effectively making Christianity the religion of the empire and forcing it to show a unified front as part of the ruling class. So, Christian mysticism that didn't fit in with what those who convened at the Nicene decided was cool were fucking obliterated. And don't get me started on other religions because they had it worse. I can read about Christian mysticism. And then, in the 5th century, the Roman Empire collapsed. However, the church remained, and it remained in all of what was once the empire. And even though the empire was gone, people still worshipped, and they did that through the church. Using this power, the church would do a silly little thing called becoming the leader of the West for the rest of the Middle Ages. Everyone bent the knee to the church, and the agenda of the church was the word of God. None disobeyed. The Crusades, Inquisitions, and colonization in its earlier stages. Not every atrocity was committed under the same flag, but most were committed under the same name. So, mysticism was free and more practiced before Christianity, which raises a question of what came before Christianity. This is easy. Paganism, and in some areas, ancient Judaism. Hellenism is the actual name of Greek paganism, and Hellenism is surprisingly relatively alive. Spared loss of everything at the hands of Christianity, probably in part due to how culturally important Greek mythos was and remains in the realms of academia and fiction writing. Hellenism is about paying respect from where you came, respect for Olympian and Chthonic gods, respect for nature spirits, respect for your parents. Shintoism is another religion that would be classified as heretical paganism. It's a religion based around pragmatism and acceptance of life's struggles, and it doesn't have gods, rather an infinite number of kami, spirits that range from just dudes in the spiritual realm to godlike beings, but the word kami doesn't have an English equivalent from Japanese, and trying to make it so ultimately takes away from the original meaning of the word. This religion was probably spared because of Japan's isolationism and the staunch refusal to let Christianity in. Buddhism was what was cool in Japan, but at least the Buddhists weren't murdering Shintoists, so that's neat. Good job, Japan. War crime king of history did one thing right. In the town of Fatick, located in Senegal, Africa, is a religion the British would love to lock in a museum. Tat Rouge, the Divine Way, or just the Serere religion. The Serere believe in their leading god, Rouge, sometimes called Rouge Seen, however that's said. I'm so sorry. The Serere believe figures from their history were immortalized by Rouge, granted demigodhood called Pangul to assist him in the protection of their places and acknowledgement of their heroism. Religion goes even further back, though. Hellenistic gods were at one point entirely different gods, and powerful kami weren't always powerful. Pangul were once human. Myths are made, and that happens in real time. We can watch that. Except for the part where we can't. Violence is a choice. Time isn't. The church took with hammers what time took with a walk. We didn't get to see these religions in their heyday. We didn't see the myths as they were made. If we go even further back to religion as we understand it at the very dawn of human civilization, there's not a lot we can certainly decide upon, but some utter madmen within academia have taken it upon themselves to recreate the first mythology of the Proto-Indo-Europeans as they spread out. See, a lot of mythologies share a lot of things, and it's a little weird because it almost suggests an origin. And researchers took it upon themselves to try and reassemble the lost religion. This archaic religion has a Sky Father, a stern man watching from above, source of daddy issues galore, an Earth Mother, a nature goddess down here who's just having her head beaten in with a metal pipe. Current day and age. My god, poor planet Earth. There's always the twins, who can represent the sacrifice of creation and or the first humans. There's always a thunder god who battles a serpent to unleash water, a goddess of dawn. The sun and the moon chasing each other because that's how rotation works. Proto-Indo-European paganism, a word and a fucking half to say, was distilled and spread. Neat. And now, religion all over the world has elements of it, so they got it right? There is no God of the gaps. There's the old mythos of what came before. I mean, sure, if I want to enable that train of thought, there's no way for me to disprove that this is the correct religion, but speaking logically, there's also no way for me to prove that. Regardless of points to be proven or opposite, time and violence and spread has taken this original religion from us, and it took many of its successors, and some of its successors too. The only thing humans can do that lasts is love. Everything else will fade away eventually. That's an inevitability. The same, too, can be said for other religions of the world I didn't mention. I'm sure the inquisitive viewer has noticed that Indo-European religion is, well, super Eurocentric. So what of Proto-Afro-Asiatic, or Proto-Austronesian, or Proto-American religions? No one has tried to reconstruct them, and strangely enough, not strangely, colonialism, not much is preserved, but even so, all of these people's religions originated somewhere, and on basis of parallels within religions, despite being oceans apart, it's safe to say that there's something within us that makes us intrinsically crave and search for mysticism, which may be why even in this time, where we're used to Christian traditional myths that uphold the status quo, we're seeing non-religious mysticism and, in some ways, new religious mysticism sneak its way into the mainstream. I could carry on about the mysticism bit, ask if it's true, pontificate upon that which lay at the edge of science, but ultimately it gets into questions that are just recursive, that if you answer, you still have a question. Within the realm of religion, provided you aren't a monster who is only a good person because they're afraid, which would make you not a good person, mysticism is about viewing the world. I think a bit of life that mysticism and science can agree upon is that your perception in some ways is your reality. Having a lens to view things through can be nice. Having a comfort to hold to yourself is, well, exactly what I said it is, a comfort. I mean, Jesus, are you deaf? Just kidding, I wouldn't be that mean and derogatory to you, dear viewer. And sure, we could go into the philosophies of having a religion, but wanting comfort isn't a character flaw as long as said comforts are not pursued through means which hurt others. And regardless with this question, is it real? The fact remains that there are a great deal of things that are utterly inexplicable that happen, things that are and do not give one fuck what you try to make of it. Things I can't quote sources for, half because they're never studied and half because they're personal. Everyone has a ghost story, something inexplicable that spooks or enlightens them. Having things just beyond us, almost understandable, but still not so, is part of the human experience. Does this mean we can throw God at these gaps and solve the lack of knowledge? No, that would be lazy. But it does mean we can look to Mysticism Lost and just wonder about the details of it. And I think that's neat. What's up, nerds? Coming at you live from the kitchen. It's been a hectic, life. People ask me, you fell on bad times? And I just tell them I ain't fell on no good ones. You know, real Cormac McCarthy in this bitch. But we made it to the end of this video, and that's what's important. So, thank you so much for watching. If you made it all the way to the end here, you've watched me talk about religion and mysticism for roughly 12 minutes, so go ahead and just press the subscribe button. Just do it. You're clearly mildly entertained, and or bored, and I'm clearly mildly entertaining. So, just push the button, please. Leave a comment. Leave a like. Leave anything, really. Just thanks for watching. So, I'll see you soon. Until next time, have a great time. Memento mori.